kipenzi. Msafi kwenye paji la uso, lakini roho nyeusi tititi. Kama roho yangu ni nyeusi. Wajua haishindi yako.
Hannah has been asking about you.
Na wewe wamjua Kate vile alivyo. Akishika lake hivi, aache nyuma.
Oh, na wewe wangangania nini kwa Laban na hakupendi? Si umwache kesi.
You homewrecker. Wewe ni wale wanawake ambao mmezoea kuvunja ndoa za watu.
If you see her come back again, you'd better let me know.
Yes, madam.
I've found the man of my dreams and I'm not letting him get away. I'm going to stay in San Juan del Valle until the day I get married because I'm going to marry him.
Calm down. You cannot go back to prison. Don't fall into his trap. Consider this a declaration of war. So better be careful.
Or could it be he just wants to keep it all a secret? It's his life, right? Let's drop it.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wame come up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaoffer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC Station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
Well, a very good morning to you and welcome to the show on this, the second last day of a historic month, that is August 2023. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. You're just in time for News Check this particular morning, and today we'll be conversing why this particular month is a historical month. We do remember that this is the month since the 2010 Constitution was promulgated on the 27th of August 2010. That is what we'll be conversing this particular morning. I do have lawyers in the House as well as a senator. We'll be conversing that in the next few hours. Also, we'll be conversing what will be happening ahead of the climate change summit that will be happening here under the city of the sun. That is Nairobi. Will be playing host for the next 4 days or so, where President William Ruto will be leading that particular auspicious occasion. That is what we'll be discussing for the first hour and the second hour as well. But before we kickstart our conversation and give you the context of what we're discussing this particular morning, I want to take you live to a particular event that is currently happening in regards to the short rainfalls that we have been experiencing in different parts of the country, led by none other than the Kenya Meteorological Department. I do understand that Dr. David Gikungu, the director of the Kenya Meteorological Service, is giving an update of the weather situation in the country. Let's get to listen in what is happening there.
7-day monthly, and we also have special forecasts and the regular updates that go with this. That said, there are also special updates for specific areas according to the requests that we may receive. Besides this, we have county meteorological offices. Every county has that kind of representation, and these kind of services will be availed to you. We are aware that we have users who may not follow what we are saying in the school language. So away from school, there is the language that we use with one another, which I will attempt to use so as to address what we are talking about. Inaitwa taarifa ya utabiri wa hali ya hewa kwa msimu wa vuli katika hiki kipindi cha Oktoba hadi Disemba mwaka huu. Msimu wa mvua ya vuli ni wa umuhimu mkubwa kwa nchi ya Kenya na hasa kwa maeneo ya katikati na mashariki ya nchi. Maeneo ya nyanda za juu ya katikati ya nchi ndiyo hupokea kiwango cha juu zaidi ukilinganisha na vile vipimo tunavyotumia kama vile milimita 700 millimeters. Uchambuzi wa msimu wa mvua za vuli mwaka huu pia unaonyesha matarajio na taswira mbalimbali muhimu kama ifuatavyo. Mvua nyingi, tunatarajia mvua nyingi inayozidi ile ya kawaida, na inatarajiwa katika maeneo mengi nchini, huku mgao wake ukitarajiwa kuwa wa wastani kwa baadhi ya maeneo na wa kuridhisha zaidi kwa maeneo mengine. Utabiri huu pia unaonyesha uwezekano mkubwa zaidi wa mvua nyingi kwa baadhi ya maeneo ya kaskazini mashariki kama tunavyotazama katika umbo la kwanza. It was the other map. Lilikuwa hili ama ni lile lingine? Ni hili. Okay. Sawa. Hali hii ya mvua nyingi ya vuli inachochewa na hali ya viwango vya juu vya joto, zile tulikuwa tunasema kwa hiyo lugha nyingine.
Well, that is the MD of the Kenya Meteorological Department giving us an update of the short rains that we have been experiencing in different parts of the country. Also, do remember the National Drought Management Authority stated clearly that there are 22 counties they are currently monitoring, and among them is Taita Taveta County and Tana River when it comes to the drought situation in those particular areas. Of course, we'll have more in our subsequent bulletins. We are also keeping an eye of what is happening in western part of the country. The head of state, you do remember, will be continuing with his 5th day tour of the western part of the country. We do understand that the president's program in Kakamega County today consists of meeting farmers at the Kakamega State Lodge. I do understand that that particular meeting was underway since morning. And of course, noon he will be heading to the Navakholo Kenya Medical Training College in Navakholo constituency. We're also expecting the president to launch the construction of the Kakamega County Aggregation and Industrial Park in Likuyani constituency. And I do understand that our reporter Wycliffe has been keeping tabs of what has been happening from morning to what will be happening late in the afternoon. So Wycliffe, what more can you tell us about the president's program?
Well, thank you so much, Abdiaziz Hashim, back in Nairobi. Like you've mentioned it, this is the 5th day of the president's walking tour of the Western Kenya region that began on Saturday, all from Busia. And today we are in Kakamega. Like you mentioned it, the president is currently holding a farmers meeting at the Kakamega State Lodge, where he is set to deliberate on a number of issues, talk about the challenges that affect the farmers in this particular region. All that will be available to our viewers later on. But right now, right where we are in Navakholo constituency, specifically this is Navakholo Medical Training Institute, or the Navakholo KMTC campus, where the president will be able to come here immediately is done with that particular meeting. And basically, before I give a summary of the president's visit since of Saturday in this region, I am going to engage Dr. Kelly Oluoch. This is the Chief Executive Officer, KMTC CEO, basically to tell us this particular institute that the president is coming to commission, what is the capacity and is it already operational? If not, when is it expected to start operating? Dr. Kelly, if you can basically stand here. This is KBC Channel 1, our news check show. In summary, what is the specific facilities that the president is coming to commission right when he's done with the meeting?
Okay. Thank you. My name is Dr. Kelly Olwach, the Chief Executive Officer for Kenya Medical Training College. Kenya Medical Training College is a college with 74 constituent campuses. And we are happy today that the president today will open a new campus that is called Navaholo Kenya Medical Training College campus. Now, this campus is under Kakamega campus for the moment until we are able to admit our students and post staff here. And the campus will be able to have around 600 students. And we are hoping that we will have our first admission this September and will allow this campus to start operating until we have sufficient number of students that can then make the campus to be a standalone campus. Yes.
What is the distribution of KMTC campuses in Kakamega County right now?
In Kakamega County, we have Kakamega campus, which is a large campus with over 1,200 students. And then we have satellite campuses. We have Mumias East Campus, and now we have Navaholo campus. We expect that this campus, once it starts operating, will at one point in time be a standalone campus, and therefore Kakamega will have at least 4 campuses here. Yes.
What is your message to the locals in this region?
Number one, that let us have our students enroll in KMTC. KMTC is a premium institution, and that KMTC is able to train for the local market and the international market. And the courses that we are providing here are going to enable these students to be exposed to a larger pool of job market, that is locally and internationally. Generally, Kenya Medical Training College has 94 courses, and these courses are organized in 18 departments, which then are categorized into 7 faculties. And so students have a wide range of choices to make among the courses that they want to join in Kenya Medical Training College. We are currently admitting students, and therefore we ask the locals to be able to visit the KUPS website and be able to apply for courses for KMTC, for which we will give admission letters. Additionally, I want to ask the locals to support this new campus by building hostels around here that could then be used for accommodation of students who cannot be accommodated with us at the campus level. We also want to ask the locals to support this campus by providing conducive learning environment that includes security, that includes providing other services like utilities, catering services that can then allow these students to stay here peacefully and be able to undergo their courses here successfully.
Right.
Yes.
In terms of higher learning, they talk about the tertiary institutions. The students who are graduating from the universities and also those graduating from the tertiary middle level high institutions of learning like the KMTCs, the key variation and what prepares or rather gives the KMTC students an edge over the others, what is that specific factor?
KMTC is the most preferred medical learning institution in the country currently, and our graduates are preferred over graduates from other institutions. Number one, because of the skills that we impart. 70% of our curriculum is skill-based, and then 30% is learnt in class, meaning that by the time the students graduate, they already know the procedures in the hospitals. They are well aware of what they are supposed to do in any medical setup. And so you will get that our students, because of the skill-based learning that they undergo, that is competency-based training, makes them very competent in the job market. Secondly, as Kenya Medical Training College, we put a lot of investment in the learning facilities. First, we have up-to-date skills laboratories. And these skills laboratories enable our students to practice the skills that they're going to apply on a live patient and perfect it in a laboratory setup before they are able to go to the real hospital setup. Now, that has an advantage where students first perfect their skills before they touch a patient. So we've really invested on Skills Lab, and that makes our students then be able to practice competently when they go to a clinical setup scenario.
Thank you. So, but just in the interest of time, we'll be able to record that off air. But then, in the interest of time, let me just have to stop it there, and we'll engage you more when we're done with the live link. Basically, Abdiaziz, that is Dr. Kelly Oluoch, the CEO, came to see in the country, actually telling us about this institute, that institution that the president is coming to commission when he's done with the meeting with the farmers at the Kakamega State Lodge. Like I mentioned when we began, that the president started this 5-day working tour of Western Kenya region on Saturday in Busia County, where he launched quite a number of projects. One is the fish landing site in Budalangi constituency, that is in Busia County. He has also launched the construction of various county, the Bungoma County, and also Busia County county industrial and aggregation parks of there. And of course, he has been made quite categorical in terms of agricultural exploitation to benefit farmers and also to ensure that the country is food secure. And that explains the meeting with the farmers at Kakamega State Lodge. This is the last day of the president's visit in this region. And of course, when he's done with that meeting, he will come here to commission this particular institution. And the last engagement of the day will be the groundbreaking for the construction of Kakamega County Industrial and Aggregation Park in far ahead later on in the afternoon. And of course, we'll be following all that and update our viewers promptly from the location. But for now, Abdiaziz, let me just hand it back to you in studio so that you can continue with the News Check show. Abdiaziz.
Cliff, on the ground, we do understand that the head of state will be also concluding his particular tour of the western part of the country in the coming few hours or days or so. Of course, we do understand he's currently meeting with farmers at the State House Lodge. We do also understand he will be addressing in a few. Once he starts addressing members of the public, of course, your dear KBC will take you live there on the ground and on the location. We also have our reporters stationed in various parts of the country. You do understand that the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport inspection continues for the second day. We do understand that members of parliament have been visiting that particular area. You also do understand what has been happening in that particular international airport for the last few days or so. But let me hand over to my reporter. I can see Trevor on the ground. Trevor, do we understand why the members of the National Assembly are currently visiting that particular international airport?
A very good morning to you, Abdiaziz Hashim. We are coming to you live from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport here at the Kenya Airports Authority headquarters, where the National Assembly Committee on Energy, on Transport and Infrastructure, led by Kariuki Macharia and Ndia MP, is expected to come here for a scheduled visit of the infrastructure here to try and assess the situation. This follows the power blackout that was witnessed here on Friday evening, bring the country's busiest airport in a total blackout. They are also expected to meet at the boardroom with the newly appointed managing director, acting managing director, that is Henry Ogoye, to deliberate on some of the changes that they are going to make in terms of leadership. This follows the firing and termination of Alex Gitari's contract by the CS of Transport, Kipchumba Murkomen, on Saturday. And from here, they're also expected to agree and on the inspection procedures. They're expected to tour the generators room M station, and they're also expected to visit Terminal 1A. They're also expected to go back to the boardroom for further deliberations in terms of the changes that they are going to make when it comes to and what needs to be done in order to bring the situation here to at least a situation of standards of an international airport. This comes, as I said earlier, after the transport CS, Kipchumba Murkomen, came here on Saturday following the blackout on Friday and did some leadership changes here, management changes here, which we saw just recently. The Kenya Aviation Workers Union Secretary General come forward and also give a voice and break the silence on the issues that have been going on here. They accused the previous regime, the previous management by Alex Gitari of incompetence and mismanagement following. They alleged that there were about several screening and metal scanners and detectors that were not working for several years and they remained unrepaired. And they also said that there was also unfair and victimization of employees where close to 150 employees had not were to be transferred to various parts of the country without any justifiable reason. And the Secretary General, that is Mos Ndiema, was calling on the halting of the current transfers that was looming of about 150 people. There were also concerns over the situation of workers here. They say that they have not been listened to, and despite all that, they have not been consulted on several issues or changes that have been happening here. They also we saw the aviation workers also weigh in on that. They also said that this situation happening here at the Kenya Airports Authority is now threatening the status of this airport. It should be noted that this is the busiest airport in the East African region and the largest as well. And having a blackout was such a serious situation that had planes rerouted. We also expect that there are other issues, the pressing issues that they also want addressed. The Kenya workers, the Kenya aviation workers want addressed here, including a salary renegotiation. They are saying that they have not had a salary review for now close to 4 years, and which they also accuse the management of having. They also accuse the previous regime led by Alex Gitari of continuing to dismiss their concerns and not addressing their issues. So Abdiaziz will be here. We're expected to tour this and we'll give you a more updated version in our subsequent bulletins at 1 and also at our Prime edition. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much. That is Trevor Ngendo there at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport giving us a status update of that particular international airport. As you're seeing on your screen, this is my panel. This is my guest this particular morning. We'll be conversing the calls for the reassessment of the 2010 Constitution. It is 13 years later. As I told you, the month of August is a historical month. As you can see on the screen, on the farthest end, that is lawyer George Kithi, and of course, on his left is none other than Honorable Dunstan Mungatana, the Tana River Senator, and on the farthest end, that is lawyer Duncan Okach. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time for us this particular morning, and that is where we kick off our conversation. You do know that this is the 5th time that somebody is attempting to alter or even change the Constitution as is. Let me give the first bite of the apple to George Kithi, who was here earlier. Wakili, is the country ripe for the constitutional review? That is our viewpoint question this particular morning. Is the country ready?
Thank you. Ordinarily, for lawyers, we start with the senior.
Yes.
Senior most, but with your the question directed to me and with permission of Honorable Senator Mungatana.
Yes.
Who is a very senior counsel.
Yeah.
I'll take the bite this way. That I think constitutions are ordinarily reviewed circumstantially, and also in response to pre-existing situations. The most predominant one is when the society is destabilized and that the society's settled edifice is disturbed. But eventually, there are many things that inform constitutional reforms and changes. The historical aspect to customize that discussion to what we have here is the change from multi-party, single-party rule to multi-partyism, fast forward to the agitation towards an overhaul of an entire constitution to a new one that we are using now.
Yeah.
What informed that change was obviously because of instability of society and the disturbance that we had at that time. We therefore had a dominant constitutional moment at that time, and we had a good reason of the constitutional moment as formed at that time. Do we have the same dominant situation now? We don't. But there are reforms to the constitution, as will be an overhaul, and there are those that come to address certain issues. I think the attempt to have the same constitutional moment that we will call is now, but not as dominant as it was when we had the referendum towards a new constitution, is probably the shortest history preceding today on account of the BBI attempt.
Yes.
The BBI attempt was a reformist approach to address one of the key issues probably we missed out when we were discussing and reforming or putting in place a new constitution. Is the I'll put it reforms on the executive. Whether the executive as is profiled, as we use it today, addresses the scope of issues that we want. For instance, we have associated presidency with resource allocation, mobilization, and distribution in the country. That pattern is associated with the crown. We today have probably a discussion on employment predominantly on certain ethnic groups. We probably have a pattern of certain appointments in government on certain ethnic groups because of association of the presidents and deputy presidents. It's a debate we have. Whether that's right or wrong, it's a different issue. But why we're having that debate is because of the dominance, notwithstanding the reforms that we make, of the crown. Now, fast forward is, that's a complaint, a concern that Kenyans have. Do we need to address it now, and is it the moment that we need to address it, or we really have to depend on discretion and good faith of the person in office? Remember, there'll always be a person in office or presidency belonging to a certain ethnic group, which is probably the dominant fissure or division that we have in this country, associating a certain personality with a tribe, with an office. That won't end. So we can't completely clear it, but it's there. The second issue will be, why then are we having this discussion? Is because preceding this, we've had a pattern of instability, probably not very pronounced, but we have had demonstrations and the disturbance of the stability of the economy and so on and so forth. So that needs to calm down. Why are we calling a constitutional moment? It's because there's a proposal probably in place to make certain reforms or to make certain adjustments in the leadership. For instance, on the table, there could be a discussion of the office of the leader of opposition and constituency offices around the same. Now, why are we having that discussion? It's because probably we have not addressed, or we failed to address that issue intrinsically in the constitution itself. Probably even this addresses the issue as at hand now, but fast forward to the next election, we probably need to reconsider the BBI element and issues that we raised. Remember, the BBI was dominantly or predominantly wanted to address the issue of the executive. It's just that the political class at that time brought in other issues that then adulterated an entire the focus on reforming the executive. I think the executive needs to be reformed because the law has to serve us. Why it needs to be reformed is because we've seen the threat or existential threat of the ethnic composition as will form government and opposition. That friction can be addressed by addressing a reformist approach towards the stability of belonging to the entirety of the administration, as opposed to winner take it all, and the others probably feeling excluded from the chain and the edifice and the thread of leadership. And therefore the friction of complaint, because what the opposition has done this time is to complain at times violently, yet it is something that we had an opportunity to address. So I think it needs to be addressed because we have to serve society and law has to serve us. Is this a constitutional moment? I doubt it will be predominantly comparable to what we have had previously, but in its own tin pot and its in own probably delineation, we will say yes. There are constitutional points that need to be looked at to address the issues now, and probably we may need to continue thinking whether we can be served better by the regime, the constitutional regime that we have.
Okay, Wakili, you've just touched even on one of the proposals made by the political lobby group that was led by PLO Lumumba. Let me head over to the Senator. Maybe, Senator, we reframe the question now. Given that we have been witnessing or using this particular document for the last 13 years or so, it has not even been fully implemented. Should we start reassessing it now?
You know, there are two groups on this constitutional debate. There's a group that says you have not fully implemented the existing constitution.
Yes.
So why are you talking about
reviewing
reviewing it, amending it, or tampering with it? Then there is the other group that says, no, even with this unimplemented, fully, constitution, we can still deal with certain aspects that require tinkering or require some amendment to make it efficient. And that particular group believes that constitutional implementation is a progressive thing, and it cannot happen in a day. Now, between those two groups, how do you bring them together? How do you create a consensus amongst them? Now, one thing that is clear is that so long as there are groupings within the thinking in the Constitution, then the constitutional moment has not reached. You know, a constitutional moment, when it is there, everybody knows it is there. You know, like when we had the clamor for the removal of Section 2A, where we said this country must be multi-party. Everybody was talking about it, except the powers that were at that time. And then people would say, this constitution is not serving us anymore, you know? And everybody seems to agree with that. That is a constitutional moment. But when we have groupings, people arguing whether in fact, whether what, then it's not a constitutional moment. But what we are dealing with is maybe refinement of the document that exists, okay? And this whole debate has been kicked off by the letter that was written by His Excellency the President to the two houses proposing the creation of the office of the leader of opposition. So is it a constitutional moment? I think not. I think it is an attempt to refine what is there and see, maybe make it better. So within this whole thinking, my own take is that we need to agree as a country that even as we were passing this new constitution, that it's no longer new, but this constitution that we have, the 2010 constitution, we had said then, and it is true now, that it is not perfect. In fact, we had said the constitution is 80% good, but there are parts that we need to look at in future. So if we can agree that there are some parts that need to be looked at, then it is true that there is need for progressively looking at the constitution. All of us who have studied law will tell you that in first year, when you are getting introduced into the constitutional law, one of the major decisions that the courts have made is that, and I think it was Lord Denning, a very respected judge, who said that the Constitution is a living document. So it is not a dead document, it's a document that keeps on evolving. So a constitutional moment, no, but there is a need to look at some of the issues that are on the table for discussion.
Okay. Wakil Okachi, let me rope you in. This will be the fifth time. Maybe the fifth time could be a charm. We have seen Punguza Mizigo, we have seen the BBI, popular initiatives taking to the people, trying to collect those signatures. Even right now, we'll be getting to that particular note that we don't even have the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC, to verify those signatures. Maybe that is the question. Will the fifth time prove to be successful?
Thank you so much, Abdiaziz, for having me. And in terms of your question, I think I'll answer it, but I will have to first maybe touch on what my learned seniors have spoken about. There is this issue of whether we are in a constitutional moment or not.
Yes.
I do not, with a lot of respect, see the place of that particular issue in regards to the amendment of the Constitution, especially with the proposals that are coming out. The reason for that is, if you look at where constitutional moments have been used and have been successful, it is when you want to do a total overhaul of the Constitution. And that is what we had that gave birth to the 2010 Constitution. And if you look at other countries, we've always had, and the Constitution envisages part amendment of that Constitution. And it's not only the Kenyan Constitution alone. That is why in America you have the first, the second, the third amendments and so on. Because you identify an issue and you say, this Constitution is good. And like we had said, and like Senior has said, there are parts we agreed. In fact, I think there was a silent understanding between Kenyans and themselves that we will pass this Constitution, but we will revisit and amend this 20% that is bad. But there was nowhere that they said we will amend it during a constitutional moment or after this number of years. So that particular aspect, as long as we know something is bad, we don't need to live with it. In fact, doctors say that the earlier, a stitch in time saves 9. You know, the earlier you deal with an element of a disease, the better. Otherwise, you'll end up treating a different factor altogether. So I think we are even late in terms of dealing with these particular amendments, in my view. And we are here and we agree. And I think anyone who is objective enough will agree that the arrangement that we have today is not serving our purpose in terms of a united country going forward. And like George Kithi has said, it doesn't matter who wins. It does not matter. There'll still be this issue. So do we need to wait for bloodshed like in 2007, which is what actually gave us the constitutional moment to push through a constitution in 2010, 3 years later, so that we say we have a constitutional moment, now we can actually amend this constitution. I don't think we need to wait for that. Do we need to wait for 1992, when we had to now threaten, and it was so bad to a point that, you know, for the former President Moi to actually agree to repeal Section 2A, you know, the country was actually almost tearing apart. Remember, we even had attempted coups before because of the dictatorship that was there. We don't need to actually be at that position to now change. So in my view, it is best that we actually accept there is an issue and we start dealing with it today. We don't wait for something to trigger. If you look at it at this particular point, even if you are talking about a constitutional moment, the BBI attempt actually surpassed by far the bare minimum threshold that was actually that is actually required by the Constitution. It actually qualified, save for the impediment by the courts. It had actually passed all the prerequisites. So the only thing that was remaining was subjecting it to the populace in a referenda, which I believe will still have passed, actually, regardless of the issues that are there. So to a large extent, if at that particular point all of us were saying, at least to this extent we need to amend this constitution to these particular aspects, nothing changes save for the fact that the regime that was there has changed and we have a new regime. That's the only thing that changes. And that is why you find that even this push that we have today is actually, like Senior Mungatana has indicated, even the president himself forwarded a memoranda on these particular changes. Remember, at that particular point, the president now was kind of saying this constitution or the changes were akin to creating positions for certain people. The memorandum that has been sent is actually exactly that, creating those positions. But the issue here is if it creates positions and it's going to help us in terms of forging forward in a more united way post every election that we'll have, so be it. We'd rather have that. But this no one is saying that the entire constitution is so bad that we need a total overhaul of the entire constitution. It is aspects. And I've seen what Professor P.L.O. Lumumba has proposed. He's only delved into aspects.
Yeah.
The president's memorandum is delving into aspects. I'm sure LSK and other bodies will also propose aspects, but does not mutilate the entire constitution to a point that now we have a different mongrel altogether at the tail end. So people must first notice that we are not doing what we did pre-2010. This is just identifying those issues, that 20%, and trying to perfect it. Remember, the law, and as Senior says, as lawyers, when we are introduced to constitutional law, one other aspect we are told is that, you see, this law, man was not made for law. Man makes law for himself. So we cannot be caged in terms of the law is like that and we will live with it, because it keeps on mutating. Circumstances change. Now we have times where people are coming to scan your eyeballs and taking them somewhere else. Our members of parliament will have to reinvent and look at the law if it covers such issues. That is why, over time, and you heard even yesterday, the president has proposed, or the cabinet has proposed bills which will repeal bills which are there.
Yeah.
So changes in law is something that is there. It is gradual.
Yes.
But remember, all these laws get their power from their mother, which is the Constitution. So at a point, when instead of doing so many amendments down here, you'd rather change from the top, every other aspect will conform. So to briefly now going to your question, in my view, these attempts are good. They may fail for one reason or another, but remember, even the 2010 Constitution as a whole, there were so many attempts. At a point, people said we'll never get a new constitution. But eventually we got. Remember, even the fight for independence, it didn't just come once. There were several attempts, there were several fights, there were several meetings. Eventually, you still get it there. So I don't have a problem with that discourse being there, that discussion and those proposals. It may fail today, but the next one will carry all these and ensure that all our common aspirations are there. And there's no day you'll find all Kenyans agreeing on any proposal, even if Jesus Christ was to come down here and give us, or Prophet Muhammad is to come back and tell us, this is what we have agreed. You'll actually find it's in common nature. And that is why we all can't agree. I've seen Martha Karua already saying she does not support this. I've seen Dr. Miguna already saying he will form, even if it is a one-man army, to oppose any amendments. So there is no day that we will say we will change this constitution because everyone is with us. But the rule of democracy is that majority will always have their way, minority will have their say.
Okay, thank you so much. If you're just joining us, this is the conversation. It's evolving around the constitutional, the review calls by none other than a political lobby group headed by P.L.O. Lumumba. This will be the fifth time, of course, they will be seeking to change the constitution. As you can see on your screen, that is our viewpoint question this particular morning. Is the country ripe for constitutional review? Is the country ripe for constitutional review? You can also join in the conversation. Hit us up on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1, at Abdiaziz Hashim. We'll be conversing that and so much more. Of course, as you have just heard from my panelists, they even touched a little bit on the focal areas that the lobby group will be keen on trying to change. Of course, the signature drive is bound to start at any moment. It will be the similar process we have witnessed with the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, and the Puguza Mizigo, led by none other than the Third Way Alliance leader, that is Ekuru Okot. Now, some of the areas they are keen on changing is on the structure of the executive. We even heard from Wakili George Kithi, that is where they will be focusing. Also on the structure of the legislature, that is the Parliament, the National Assembly, and in the Senate. Of course, we'll be posing that particular question to the Senator as well, given that he is already here. We also will be focusing on the leadership and integrity, the national election, which has been the bone of contention to the extent of even seeing a bipartisan team being formed that is currently, of course, meeting today at the Bomas of Kenya. The framework of devolution, back of that particular devolution conference that was held in Eldoret, even the governors were agreeing that the framework, they have to relook at the framework of devolution through the County Government Act of 2012, the fight against corruption, led by, of course, all those agencies, EACC, DCI, and the National Police Service, and the Independent Commission and offices, that is the likes of IBC, the National Land Commission, and various others independent bodies in this particular country. Those will be the main focal points for the lobby group led by PLO Lumumba. Maybe let me circle back to George Keithy. Given this conversation is carrying on gradually, you even heard from the Senator and Wakili Okach, we need to implement, we need to re-look at the Constitution progressively, because the 80% of the Constitution, as you just heard from the Senator, it's there, it's good, it's serving the common cause that it was intended to do. But the 20%, instead of learning from the past attempts, because all these attempts were going through the popular initiative way, why not go to Parliament?
Well, probably we go back to the debate as to the formula to be used.
Okay.
Is it parliamentary or is it the popular way? My take is this, that you see, we have two sets of processes that govern us. The first one will be what we call direct democracy, where the people themselves make decisions as a people. So when we appoint our leaders into office, we're exercising direct democracy and putting them into office. The moment that is done, then we hand over that liberty towards representation, because we put them into offices. So they represent us, and that becomes indirect democracy, where lots of the things that we want are congregated in a house called Parliament, and they debate on certain aspects. If agreed, they form policy, and that forms law or rules. But in a sense, they probably accommodate the views that we have through them. And the question, therefore, you pose is, do the people themselves make that decision as if it was an election?
Yes.
And therefore the popular initiative, or will then the members of Parliament or those representatives make those decisions for us? Either way is the same thing, that the people are making their decisions by themselves or through their representatives.
Okay.
It's all formatted and structured within the governance structures of our Constitution. But there are things that we have said in the Constitution, that these we can leave to a representation, but there are certain things that are so important to the societal edifice that we cannot allow them for representation. We want to speak for ourselves. And those are also in black and white in the Constitution, not even implied. They express in the Constitution what then is for and what is not for representation. Suffice it, therefore, to put it this way, that which needs to be reformed depends on what is said by the Constitution on how it will be reformed.
Okay.
So either it has been prescribed as for popular, that means referenda,
Yes.
or alternatively it could still be represented by Parliament. Now, I'll put it this way. This debate cannot be, it cannot be a debate of a day or 2 days. It can't even be for sometimes a term. It could coalesce into many political opinions.
Yes.
It could take ethnic angles. It could take party affiliative angles. But ultimately, it congregates to one thing, that we need to improve on what we already have. Now, the question as to improving is not an overhaul. We are not there. Like you correctly said, and has been said here,
Yes.
that a lot of what we have is working for us. So we're not going to fix that which is working for us.
Okay.
Consequently, we are not going to, burn an entire forest because there's some mice in there that is eating our corn in our shamba. We will not burn the whole forest. So we're not going to overhaul the entire Constitution. We'll look for the mice, trap it, and take it out.
Okay.
We will reform that which is not working. Question is, who says this is not working for us? I think it's going back to the society, examining the society as to where is the problem,
Okay.
and what is it that needs to be addressed. Now, that can only be done through a certain a certain investigation as to what the issue is. For instance, we had maandamano. What was the issue? The issue is executive. That needs to be addressed. Then the issue is cost of living. How do I address cost of living?
Okay.
There is a whole debate on economics, intra and extra, within the country and without. So that can be a constitutional issue. Eventually, therefore, I think it is what the Constitution prescribes. To be done, shall be done.
Okay, apologies, Wakili. We have to pay some bills, unfortunately. Senator and Wakili Okachu will be coming back after this short commercial break. Don't go too far. We're still discussing the calls for constitutional review. That's why we're asking you as well. You can be part of this particular conversation. Is the country ripe for constitutional review? Hit us up on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1, at Abdiaziz Hashim. Don't go too far. That is the question we are asking you this morning.
What's in your kitchen? A show that celebrates Kenyan and African dishes.
Rusha. Wait. Be careful. Yes, because I've seen some fire jump there.
That is called flambéing.
Flambéing. So tukiona moto tujue ni flambéing. Crushed methi seeds. Kila siku soma kitu mpya. Mchele yetu iko sawa. Hii iko sawa. Tumalize.
Sasa ni kwenda tukule.
Napima.
Hii ni chakula mzuri sana.
Nzito kabisa. Salivate this delicious meal on your screen while taking notes for the recipe. Don't miss What's in Your Kitchen on KBC.
그게 누군지 궁금하지 않아요?
뭐, 내가 아는 사람이에요?
이름 왕정남, 나이 40세, 절도전과 6범.
그게 누군데요?
영경이를 감시하던 배후 세력이 북쪽이 아니었다는 사실.
Kipenzi, msafi kwenye paji la uso, lakini roho nyeusi tititi kama roho yangu ni nyeusi. Wajua haishindi yako.
Hannah has been asking about you.
Na wewe wamjua Ketu vile alivyo, akishika lake hivi aachi nyuma.
Oh, na wewe wang'ang'ania nini kwa Laban na hakupendi? Si umwachie kesi?
You homewrecker. Wewe ni wale wanawake ambao mmezoea kuvunja ndoa za watu.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. The topic remains the same, is the calls for constitutional review that has been exacerbated across the country by none other than the political lobby group led by PLO Lumumba. There are key areas they are recommending for changes. As you were just joining us this particular morning, those 7 key areas includes the executive, the legislature, and other parts of the constitution, various articles like the leadership and integrity one that has been a litmus test, not just just for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC, during electoral process. Those are the viewpoints this particular morning, and that's why we are asking you, dear viewer, as well. You can contribute to this particular conversation. Is the country ripe for a constitutional review? We are asking you, dear viewer, is the country ripe for a constitutional review? Hit us up on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 at Abdi Aziz Hashim. I'll be sampling some of your comments and views, and of course reading them aloud at the tail end of this particular program. Still with us this particular morning is none other than lawyer George Kithi, Senator Danson Mungatana, as well as lawyer Duncan Okach. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us this particular morning. Let me head over to the Senator now. Given that you can see that some of these focal areas are targeting the structure of the legislature, that is both the National Assembly and the Senate, maybe, Senator, given that you reside there and you're representing people there, what are these loopholes that maybe that political lobby group has seen to the extent of even recommending reviewing the structure of the legislature?
You know, there are a lot of things that may not be 100% with this constitution.
Yes.
But then the approach that is being taken by that lobby group will not yield any success. You cannot say you want to amend the executive, you want to amend the legislature, you want to amend I don't know what. It does not work like that. Look, what did the president do? He said, I am proposing 1, 2, 3. In fact, I think it was just the question of the opposition, which was the center.
Yeah.
Then the question of the 2/3 majority issue. And that's how you deal with people and with political power. But when you are talking about, you know, let us change this, let us change this, let us change this, you know, at the end, because for every force there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes.
So you're opening up so many battlefronts, and you can't just sustain that. So the best thing is to open one. Let's deal with this. And maybe when we are dealing with this, there could be subsequent issues surrounding that same point. Then let's deal with them and then finish with this. We say that we were successful in dealing with this during this election time or this election term. But then when you say you want to change parliament, how it looks like, how Senate looks like, how the presidency look like, how the governors should look like, you are losing. We say in Senate, it's dead on arrival.
Okay.
You know, even before the proposal has taken off, it's dead. So there's nothing that it will move. But I think Kenyans need to actually discuss this issue of the opposition seriously. Why I say so is this. If you are in class with one of your classmates and they met you today, they can tell you anything because you played football with them, you played basketball with them, you ran in the rain with him, and you did all manner of things when you were young. You are peers. You can talk at the same level. Yeah? Now, let's transport that issue to the presidency. The president doesn't have a peer except the ones who ran with him or against him during the elections. And the closest peer he has is the second runner, the first runners-up, who is the number 2 in the election. That is one guy who can talk to him as a peer and tell him, no, look, this is not... They can laugh, they can joke, in their private moments, away from cameras, they are the same. You know, like the guy who ran against me for Senate, we are the same. You know, he can say anything to me, you know, because we are peers, you know. And that is the best person to check you, you know. Within your age group in the Pokomo setup, those who are within your age, those you did circumcision with, there are people who can tell you anything because they are the ones who will bury you anyway at the end. So it's the same thing. That's the concept that people need to agree that in the current constitution, the person who is given the mandate to check on the executive is the minority leader. Opio Wandai, for Christ's sake, he was elected from a small constituency somewhere, you know. Can he really say that because I'm the minority leader, I can talk at the same level the president? He can't. You see what I mean? If you leave it the way it is now, then there is no proper oversight on the office of the president. So when we say now that let us create that second person to come to the house, a seat for him or her, and that person will be able to address the house, tell issues, take up issues that have something to do with the nation, and talk to the president. No, you promised this, you are not delivering, then you should prepare to go back home because there are other people like us who are waiting. So we are saying that there is need for that. And I'm going to push it further. I'm going to say this, that the president's proposal was just at the national level. But remember, we have two levels of government. We have the governors. The governors, again, you have an MCA who is a minority leader, who is supposed to fully check on what is happening on the executive. The governor is elected from a very large electoral area. He has so much more power and resources. The second person who came to his election would be the best person, especially if he's a first-term governor. You know, to tell him, look, you lied to the people. You said this. And he says on the floor of the House. You know, the floor of the House has privileges, parliamentary privileges. You can say anything. And he's not a member of the House. The governor, the president, is not members of the House. So they will not have the chance to come even and respond. It has to be maybe through the majority leader in the House, if they have the majority. So the way I'm looking at it is that there will be less corruption. If you ran Abdulaziz against me and you won, you know, and I'm now the leader of opposition in the county assembly, you know, anything you plan, I will go out to the public. So even if you're trying to do deals, what, if they are shoddy, you will be very careful. But on the other hand, you'd want to look good to the people. And remember, me, I'm sitting in the House, so I can say anything under parliamentary privilege. So you will fear me, and you will be careful. And the same thing will happen to the president. He will fear that person, and he will be careful. And so I think it should be understood properly. And I wanted us to also understand the concept of loyal opposition. Loyal opposition in the United Kingdom, there is the Prime Minister who heads the government, and then there is the head of state who is the king, and then there is the opposition. Now, the opposition is loyal to His Majesty the King, who is the sovereign in their country. The head of government is loyal to the king, who is the sovereign, the head of state in their country. In Kenya, the two levels of head of government and head of state have been combined, okay? So in a sense, the sovereign, who is the head of state, is represented by the same person in that office. However, a loyal opposition would be loyal to the Republic of Kenya, not to the head of government, okay? So you can stand and say things in that house, but they are for the good of the country. They may not agree with government policy, but they are for the good of the country. So it's a loyal opposition to the Republic of Kenya. And the president also, he swears loyalty to the Republic of Kenya. So you see, you have the head of government fighting for, so he will argue that what I'm doing is good for the country, and the leader of opposition says, no, what I'm also saying is good for the country. That way you have a balance, and this country will be very good to go if we have that balance. You cannot balance political power of a president with a leader of minority, or political power of a governor with a leader of minority in the county assembly. This discussion needs to be understood along those lines. Unfortunately, I don't know what kind of people we have in the opposition, because when this letter from the president came to the House, instead of looking at the opportunity and working to see how we can benefit out of it like any other good politician would do, The first thing they did, they jumped and said, no, we don't want. How can a person in government be talking on our behalf? It means he has a plan against us. Come on, you know. So what is their opposite suggestion? Maandamano, streets, throwing stones, destroying property, and it should not be that way. Engage power at a level where power will listen to you, not at a level where it will crush you. So let us look at this proposition and accept it's good for the development of our nation, but not leave it at the national level. We need to go to the governors. That will be a very good thing, a good change.
Okay, maybe Wakili, coming to you, you've just heard what from the senator is saying. They don't need to attack all the 7 areas. Maybe focus on the chronic issue. The chronic issue in this country has been electoral disputes. After every election, we're seeing people in court, we're seeing people on the street. Maybe why not address the areas surrounding the electoral process so as to ensure that this does not happen every time during our election period?
I think in answering that particular question, what I would want to say is that I think this is my maiden appearance with my learned senior senator, and we used to hear he eats crocodiles. I think he still does, because with what he has said, he's actually summarized everything in terms of, and it even answers that question that you have said, because the panacea to these post-election turbulences, accusations, and dissatisfaction is the winner takes it all mentality, which is enshrined in our constitution. It's codified there, and unfortunately, it doesn't marry well with the ethnic or ethnicization of politics in Kenya, because it will take quite a long time for us to de-ethnicize politics. And the more we are continuing, the deeper it is entrenched. People are saying maybe with the new generation, the Gen Z generation, it will change. But gradually, when people are becoming adults, you still notice they still go back to those tribal cocoons. And politics becomes an issue of ethnic numbers, and it has worked for people. Maybe if one day we are alive to see that politics can now be issue-based politics, policy-based politics, and that becomes the sole determinant of who I elect, then maybe we may actually remain with the constitution as is, and we don't need to create these other balancing aspects. But today, the problem is that we are still here, and we may be here for quite a long time. So the best aspect is to be realistic and say, how do we deal with the situation as is? So to deal with the situation as is to know that in every subsequent election, most likely there'll be an issue of ethnic bigotry or even assembly. So you'll find that in every party that we have, there is an issue of ethnicity within it, and it has not changed. And these parties are made for purposes of capturing power. So power will always be captured by parties, and parties having their backbone in terms of some ethnic arrangements. So to a large extent, you'll find that whoever does not capture power will actually feel like other people are now in power, they are feeling the sweetness of power, and for the next 5 years, we'll actually be in a desert when the other people are actually in the oasis part. Yet you're in one country. You'll never say that these people will be proud of being in the same country. Remember, when we had a lot of developments, but Northeastern province remained behind, people thought we don't care. But gradually we noticed that it still affects these other parts, that things that they are going forward, and you are reneging on some parts of Northeast and some parts of the coastal province. Eventually notice we are one body. So to that extent, you've seen that now development has been stretching either through devolution or through national government to those areas. And it is helping. Today you can actually go up to Marsabit and you'll find tarmac. When I was in Kangaroo High School, those times we used to think the end of that particular area will be Isiolo. But now it is quite nice, and it spurs development. So the same thing is what I think will be a panacea to this, that it doesn't matter who actually wins. All you know is that we will still be in government in one way, we will still be respected in one way, we will still have something to contribute to governance of this country, and share in the growth of this country. Because at the tail end of it, and that's where Senior has not indicated, if the country moves forward, no one side will say it is only us. People will say jointly we all helped. Because even when I criticize, I'm actually, and it's positive criticism, I'm helping. This will also deflate the issue of mandamano, the issue of destruction of property, because that then does not contribute to wealth. Despite the fact that I disagree with him to the extent that mandamano is not solely a bad thing. I have told people in many forums that if we didn't have this aspect of mandamano, rebels and protests, we'll not even have had our independence. Because that is what people were being told the other time by these chiefs. They are called paramount chiefs, who are appointed by now the Mkoloni. That these people protesting, you know, they are taking us back. They want us not to develop. We will not have had independence. If we didn't have that, we will not have had the repeal of Section 2A, which senator now can actually vie from this party, the next he can, if there is a disenfranchisement, you can go to another party, or even create yours. It's through that we managed to grant unto ourselves the 2010 Constitution. It also didn't come just like that.
Yes.
Blood was lost, lives were lost. So to a large extent, and this is not only unique to Kenya, it is worldwide. Even Wazungus today, France you saw, people demonstrate. In the US, when there were issues, when there was the issue about black and racism, and just there 2 years ago, people demonstrated, and the powers that be had. So the only thing is that you do it in a proper way. You don't destroy just property for the sake of it. That is not what is envisaged in the Constitution. Doing it in a way that people will listen, but you don't actually destroy property. If you look at the Constitution the way it is, and that's why I'm saying we need to look at it properly, it was envisaged that you want to diffuse the attention to the center, that being the president is everything in an election. That if your person or your party leader does not attain presidency, you will not benefit in terms of development projects. And the Constitution then that we granted ourselves say that it does not matter who is president, but this national cake will be distributed to each and every region, regardless of whether your governor is from the ruling party or not. So with devolution, people expected that you'd be more focused, like for me in Homa Bay, I will be more focused on who is governor in Homa Bay, because that is a person now who will be given resources to help us. So that if he does not utilize the resources properly, another county can actually develop faster than mine. So if it is Nairobi, we'll be focused on who is the governor in Nairobi, and because that will affect me because I spend more time here than in Homa Bay. So I will be more focused. But for one reason or another, Kenyans have refused to accept that this is actually the main part. And that's why Senior is saying, even whatever we are applying to the national executive should be applied to the county executive. Because these resources, a lot of it goes to the county itself. But unfortunately, it has not worked. It may not work. So people are still focused on who is the president. But I will tell you, we are also creators of this problem, because you can see the trip that the president is making that you are actually showing. It is, all these trips are fashioned as development projects. That I'm coming here with goodies, with what, you know. Then you are misusing the ideals of the national government and the resources that should be there. Because you can't say, I'm just coming here and because I want to appease you, I'm coming with all these projects, I'm coming with all this. That's misuse of actually that part. Because this should be, president is the national head. So we have that problem, fine. But in terms of the panacea, so that we do not have any issues in terms of elections, so that you are not termed as a loser. You don't lose anything. Remember, in the past, before this constitution, we used to have the leader of official opposition. This leader could appoint shadow cabinet ministers who oversee specific ministries in line with what the government has said. And it was very effective. That is what we want to see in terms of the proposals going forward. And everyone will always feel as part of the government or part of the country in one way or another.
Okay, thank you so much, Wakili. Given that we're in the tail end of our first segment, which is the state of the nation, we are currently discussing the calls for constitutional review. Let me accord my three panelists here at least 30 seconds each, focusing also on the bipartisan talks that are currently ongoing at the Bomas of Kenya. Let me start with George Kithi as you give us your final remarks. will the entrenchment of the office of the opposition leader being included in the constitution be a silver bullet to this chronic issue? 30-second, Wakili.
Yes, it is important, first, that the discussions are not held without a framework, a legal framework.
Yes.
That legal framework in place now heralds the opportune moment within which the discussion can be structured.
Uh-huh.
The second issue will be whether then that's curative.
Mm-hmm.
It is, to the extent of the grievances that was there, albeit I don't think it will be a successive issue to cajole or appease an opposition mass.
Okay.
Because I think it's piecemeal.
Mm-hmm.
What will have informed all this is probably, and I agree with my senior Danson here, that we need to separate the symbolism of head of state and head of government. Because sometimes even those two, the symbol of the head of state and head of government clash. Head of government would make policies that do not edifies the entire population. And remember, we have a whole mass of almost 50% that has been in opposition. And at times, that's a human being with human beings. His cabinet. They make mistakes. They make mistakes.
Okay.
So some decision will be like, I am going to scrap, subsidies.
Okay.
It's a decision you make, but you see, it affects as many people as will complain. And then we look at the head of state and head of government in particular complaint of sorts. And then government life becomes, hard on account of certain decisions, which were wrong. And they could be corrected, yes. But if we separate those two, one day, we will probably be now fashioning a higher model of leadership than it is now. Now, as to whether this addresses it, I think in the interim it does, but more needs to be done towards a reformist approach to be more inclusive and ordain a statecraft that probably encompasses a feeling of belonging, semblance of state and nation for everyone to be accommodated or feeling accommodated.
Okay, Wakili. Senator, just 30 seconds. Maybe as you wind up, give us your view, given that the Senate Oversight Fund will also be featuring in those talks at the Bomas of Kenya. How crucial will that be for senators such as you when you're overchecking or looking at what the executive is doing in your counties?
Yeah, maybe before I say that, I wanted to talk about electoral issues.
In 30 seconds, Senator.
Yes. This national dialogue
yes.
was brought by some clamor about lack of satisfaction with the results of the election. And I wanted to say this, and I don't know whether the time is there, that people must learn to accept defeats.
Okay.
I have had the taste of both sides. And when you are not elected by the will of the people, you go home.
Okay.
I said in the Senate yesterday about this national dialogue.
Yes.
And I said it again, and I will say it anywhere. Abraham Lincoln, the president of the US many years ago, he won the election with the support of the northern states alone. The southern states felt they were being left out. So when Abraham Lincoln was going to be sworn in 1861, these 7 states, they went congregated in Montgomery, Alabama, and they swore in a new constitution with some guy called James Davis as a new president.
Okay.
You see, they were against the new person who was popularly elected. So Abraham Lincoln said, we must settle this question that election, popular election, are not an absurdity. It's not a theory. It's a reality that these people have lost and these ones have won. And he said, we must settle this question that can a minority that has lost an election be at will, free to destroy a government that was elected by popular support of the people. And unfortunately for them, between 1861 and 1865, they couldn't agree. So there was a war between the northern and the southern states. And the country lost 620,000 people because of an electoral dispute. We thank God, Kenya, we haven't gone that way. But even as we are making changes in this constitution, politicians must learn political manners. Because you cannot put electoral dispute just because you have lost an election. And then you make it a risk. In America, they lost 620,000 people, because of an electoral dispute. And other issues came, of course, they started saying, slavery and whatnot. But the issue was they were not accepting Abraham Lincoln as the president of the United States. Okay, that war ended and the United States became still United States. But these guys fought because of an election dispute. We thank God we haven't gone that way. But politicians must be told, never again must you risk the entire state just because you lost an election. You could have 40% of the electorate, 30% of the electorate supporting you, even 50% of the electorate supporting you, but for Christ's sake, you agreed to the rules of the game, that you are playing 11 and I'm playing 11. If I score against you, I've won. And then at the end, you start saying, no, the referee was unfair after the game was over because you didn't win. I think these bad manners must end, and we must never accept again as a country to go that way. We will leave a bad legacy. And this is why I'm saying this national dialogue. Let them discuss all the issues, but we should not reopen the will of the people. That is sacrosanct. That is what makes all of us. That is what creates the state.
Thank you, Senator. Maybe you'll watch quickly. 30 seconds.
Yes, I'll try to be within 30 seconds. But again, I find myself not agreeing completely with my very learned senior. And I'll take it forward from where he has left, and which he has not told you. Pursuant to that the issue that arose during Abraham Lincoln's tenure, they realized that it's not all about the majority vote. It's not all about the popular vote. It's about representation. And to that extent, they said, let us even change this formula so that we ensure that it's not, you might even have the majority of the popular vote, but if you do not convince these people across the board, which leads to the electoral college, you do not become president. And that is why Clinton actually got the popular vote. But it is Trump who actually became president during that time. And Trump did not get the popular vote. But he managed to get now across the board. So what we are saying, even in our in the reality of times, where it's about tribes, it cannot be that one tribe or two tribes can always merge and will always get leadership and the other tribes play second fiddle. When will the people from the coast, from where my two seniors come from, when will any of them even try to even vote for presidency? They will not, because they don't have numbers. And because the system is actually tailored to ensure they do not even dream of that. They can't even dream at night of becoming president. But if we change this, I can tell you, Mlamwamba will actually be in the ballot. And he might even win.
I have to agree with him that the Electoral College was one of the results of that. And that is something that we need to discuss. But we also have to have good manners.
Senator. Senator.
You lose.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are out of time. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me start with George Kithi. He is a lawyer, Senator, Tana River Senator, that is Danson Mungatana, as well as Wakili Duncan Okach. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in this particular morning and in the afternoon session. As we conversed, we were pressed for time. We could talk about this topic till tomorrow, but the issue is about the time as well. And unfortunately, none of you at least even refer to me as a learned friend, because in the legal fraternity we do understand you like using that word, learned friend. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your company as well. I do understand we need to head over to Safari Park. I do understand there is an event of going inside there, of course, in Safari Park, pertaining to a number of issues. I do understand that we have our reporters stationed at that particular event. What more, or let's get to listen in at what is happening at Safari Park.
Well, hello there, Abdiaziz. We are coming to you live from Safari Park. Right now, what is going on is a conference. There is a global congress on new emerging genetic biocontrol technologies. We are linking up with one of the officials who would be telling us more on what is happening. So please introduce your name.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Willie Tonui. I'm the founder and the head of Secretariat for the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium. Here at Safari Park today, we have a unique congress, a global conference, whereby we are introducing new and emerging technologies that are currently being used for managing infectious diseases, as well as issues that affect health, environment, and animal health and the wildlife. So we are gathered here. We brought on board very many experts from all over the world. We have 18 countries right now represented here, and they are all from all regions of the world. And the reason why I brought them together is to bring them under one roof. They discuss elements of genetic biocontrol. A lot of people are understanding GMOs, for example, pest control. Pest control, all these are examples of genetic or actually biocontrol tools. But now we have new tools now that they are based on genetics, like G drives, gene editing, and also the use of synthetic molecules, for controlling these unique problems that we have in the region in Africa. Yeah. So we brought them to Kenya, in Africa, so that we take stock of what is happening elsewhere in the world, and with a view of looking at them in African context.
Okay, perhaps you could tell us which sectors are you looking at? I've seen you've talked also about public health.
Yes, we are looking at public health, environment, and issues pertaining to animal health as well as wildlife health. Yeah. So a lot of people are aware about the GMOs for crop development or food security and related issues. But in this case, we are going wider. We are looking at all aspects, from environment, taking stock of what is important for controlling pests that affect humans, animals, and also the environment and the wildlife.
Okay, also perhaps the malaria aspect. I've seen you've really been vocal on that.
Yes, this unique meeting today is actually addressing the pertinent issue of malaria. You're aware in Africa, the disease is really affecting majority of our countries. And children and mothers and vulnerable communities, are affected by malaria. All of us are affected by malaria, and the disease-causing germ is Plasmodium parasite, which is carried by a mosquito. And so there are new techniques now of trying to control suppression of mosquito as vectors using genetic modification. And so there are genetic modified mosquitoes that are being developed elsewhere in the world, and they are also being tried in Africa to see whether they can affect their suppression and therefore controlling malaria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's just a bit you've heard from Willie Tonui. We will be giving you more in our subsequent bulletin. My name is Teresa Mutai. Back to you in studio.
Tess, thank you for that particular update, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you in our subsequent bulletins at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Do continue with your coverage, and of course you'll duly inform our viewers later on in our coverage. Of course, we are entering into this second hour. We have at least 30 minutes to converse environmental matters. You do know that the city under the sun, which is the capital, will be playing host to a major conference, climate conference, that will be happening from the 4th of September to the 8th of September, spearheaded by none other than the president of this particular country, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And of course, we'll be conversing around the issues pertaining to the benefits of sharing natural resources in the counties. It is, I do understand, a bill that has been taken to the Senate as well. You can see my guest this particular hour is Gerald Ngatia, the coordinator of Community Forest Association. Gerald, it is still in the morning. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Yeah, morning, Aaron.
Maybe let me start with that particular question. Just walk us through that particular bill you've just tabled in the National Assembly as well as in the Senate pertaining to the sharing of natural resources within the counties. How does that work?
Yeah, the Natural Resource Benefit Sharing Bill has been a bill that has been going around both the Senate and National Assembly since the year 2014. The Constitution has got Article 69 of the Constitution gives the mandate of the state to ensure that there is equitable sharing of natural resource benefits in the country.
Yes.
But over the years, we didn't have a legal structure to actualize that article. But now we have the Natural Resource Benefit Share Bill that was first spearheaded by Senator Zani.
Yes.
And it didn't go through the last parliament. But now Senator Mugatana took it on.
Yes.
It has already passed the Senate, and now it is in National Assembly. One thing it will do is that this bill will ensure a trickle down of benefits in natural resource sector. That is issues of water, forestry, mines, petroleum, sunlight, geothermal, name it, so that the people who host those resources, the county government, the communities, may be able to feel the importance of conserving resources in this country because they will own them and they will be able to know that they are now getting something out of what they have been conserving over the years.
Okay.
It's a very beautiful bill.
Yes. I can see you also proposing a benefit sharing authority, a body that will be running that particular sector.
Yeah.
But in terms of how will that sector enhance the collaboration, I do understand, between the national government and the county so that it cannot be just a devolved matter? How will that particular authority see that there is that linkage between the two levels of government?
One thing, the correction of revenue is on KRA.
Yes.
So the authority is just there to oversee the resources that are collected in natural resources are distributed equitably. The national government, out of that kitty, will get 60%, whereby that one will go towards conservation, having people in the environmental sector working within the government. The other 40% will go to the county government, whereby that will also be divided into two. The county government, out of the funds that let's assume you have about 100 million.
Yes.
Collected nationally, natural resources, water, mines, whatnot. The 100 million divided 60%, that is 60 million will go to the national government for them to be able to manage the natural resources. The 40 will go to the county government. Out of that 40, then you divide it into two. 40%, the county will have the prerogative to ensure that the entire county gets some benefit. Because there are some areas perhaps you didn't have water, and that definitely will not be left out. But the other 60, where the resource came out, will get the social programs being taken care of. Let's talk about now a very simple example. You have sand. These beautiful buildings we have in Nairobi.
Yes.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Where does that sand come from? Kitui and Machakos.
Okay.
Most of them. So, out of the revenue that is collected by the government on sand,
yes,
some of it will trickle down to those people
yeah,
where they mine that sand. Some of them who have now been living in those holes because of poverty. Sometimes when the rains come, they are buried there. But the county government will have now a way of improving their livelihood.
Yes.
The last 40, because sand is not mined in every sector within Machakos,
yeah,
will also benefit other areas. The 60% that was left at the national government, there are other areas that perhaps they did not get sand harvesting, but they will have a small portion that will go to their areas to improve that their standard of living.
Maybe in that particular collection, it's a good bill that you're presenting before the parliamentarians. Let's say that body collects, let's say, about 70 billion. You're just saying that 60%, of course, will be trickling down to the counties, and the other small percentage will be heading over back to the national government. Maybe have you put mechanisms to ensure, given that you do know the country we are in, the issues of corruption, maybe how do you ensure that those particular funds reach the final destination that it requires to be steered to?
Yes, at the county level, there will form every county where you have natural resources, you'll have a county benefit sharing committee, where majority of them are community members. Then at the local level, there is the local benefit sharing committee that is also composed by the communities, who will now look at the social programs that they need to be done at the local level. And then the county benefit sharing committee will know and monitor how much has come from the national. If they have got only that $1 million, then it will be divided in the fractions that we said. And the county committee now will see where do we do restoration, what sort of programs do we do and where in this part. And it will also monitor what happens at the local level. And the authority is to oversee the agreements that are made between the local benefit sharing committees, the county benefit sharing committee, and the resource, that is the persons who are exploiting those resources. So the structures are there.
Okay.
It has built the structures.
Ahead of this particular summit that is coming, it's a big summit that will be coming this particular week. Maybe will we be seeing bright minds like you on that particular stage, trying to even see if leaders and other environmentalists can back you up in this particular bill when it comes to ensuring that we attain or get level of green energy in this particular country?
Yes, in that forum, given the chance, we being members of the community and who are the managers and hosts of environment in this country, would be able to give the views of that local person at the ground. That person who has been managing the water resources in this country. The water that, if without water, Nairobi will not run. The industries will not run. But the people who are doing conservation in the Aberdares, in the Mau, go there. So many of them not only do not have water, but they live in poverty. If only we had that trickle-down effect, we would ensure sustainable and that's a supply of those resources. The other day you saw some elephants being killed in Kajiado. It was a sad issue, but it is out of bitterness. Yes, these elephants have killed one of our own. Perhaps the other day a lion came and killed one of our own, but we were not compensated. And then out of that bitterness, you lost quite a number of elephants. It's very sad. Do we continue that way? No. We have to get a solution. We don't want to go that way. We don't want people destroying our forests. We don't want people cultivating on the riparian areas. But we have to have a solution in policy and in law, and also the goodwill of politics.
Maybe given that the Paris Climate Accord and Kenya is a signatory to that particular agreement, with that in mind, Mr. Ngatia, it boils down to the issue of house gas emissions that are sometimes harmful to our environment, which has even environment experts up in arms in most part of the country. But we have watched a significant part of the African continent has agreed to that particular climate accord, but you'll see other nations, maybe the United States, from Europe and Asia alike, are the ones emitting those gases, yet African continents are feeling that particular pinch more than them.
It is true. Climate change affects the local people so badly. But even when we are going to the communities, yes, they are the main sufferers, but are they the contributors to the pollution? No. You go to the ground, you find that the people on the ground, food security, because of erratic rainfalls, conflicts, because of resource conflicts, water, our animals dying because of droughts, floods displacing people. But the contributors, the polluters are the big industrial countries. When agreements are made, from COP1 to COP28, commitments towards changing that, we have not seen it fully. The ritual that trickles down is through donors. So we are told donors are coming, they will do this, they will do that. But it's just a drop in an entire ocean. And the question we ask as community, because we rarely participate in those communities, rarely go to that level, is that when they discuss, can we have some tangible commitments that will also actually change on the ground? Because deforestation, degradation will continue. One thing I always tell when I attend those meetings, sometimes I'm given a chance to attend some of them. I always tell them one thing. There is a man who lives at the field there. I call him the man with the axe. That man makes the decision whether the tree will live or will die. If he doesn't have food on the table today, that tree will be turned into charcoal because the family has to feed. If we had a solution on how he can feed his family, the tree will live. So it's us to see how do we change the livelihood of that man on the ground.
It's very nice, Mr. Ngati, you even brought up the issue of the COP summit that was even held in Egypt. You could see even the African continent, leaders from our continent were imploring those superpower countries, as they call themselves, to ensure that those funds are directed to mitigating or curbing this particular issue. But there was none committed to that particular part. We have even seen our president clearly stating that maybe what should we as the African continent, even in Kenya, try to do and meet that particular gap?
It has been a long debate. And we have been seeing it as one example. Could be the red plus, the greenhouse effect. It's just like me, Gatia, who have employed a worker in my house. And I always implore that worker to continue cleaning and mopping the floor. But as she is mopping the floor, I continue pouring more water on the same floor. And still imploring her that she's not doing enough. That's exactly what is happening on climate change and this greenhouse effect. The polluters are the major those big countries. But they still implore on African countries and others, continue mopping so that we have less and less carbon dioxide in the air. But we don't see commitment on the other side. It's just talks, commitments, but very little coming down to help us to mop so that we have less. We have the land to plant more trees. The president is talking about 15 billion trees. It's a very good initiative if we were to reach that so that we get that a percent recover from the present 12. And it will mop up billions and billions of tons of carbon. But tell me, how much money do we need to do that? To raise one tree, one seedling, to about 3 years, so that we grow it, not planting it, will require about 200 shillings. That is raising it, planting it, taking care of it to a certain height that you are sure this will sustain itself. 200 times 15 billion. What are those people who are polluting going to contribute to once being achieved that? That's the question.
Maybe to that trajectory of the 15 billion trees being planted ahead of the 2030 vision goal of not just this government, but then even the next government that will come into power. We have seen even this government trying to move the country from charcoal burning to using gas in terms of preparing their meals in their usage. Should that be an added bonus for environmentalists such as you who have been advocating for people not to cut trees?
One thing that we see is that, yes, trees, it's not good to cut trees. But eventually, that person on the ground will have to eat today.
Mm-hmm.
The gas, yes, the government have done a bit of reducing the cost of gas.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's still too high for the local person.
Mm-hmm.
That man on the ground. We have gone out to check, to see even studies of how women go through carrying fuel very long distances, the effects of health on them. But they still do it because you tell her to buy that cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
The cheapest cylinder you can get on the ground is about 6,000 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
Filling it, it's a minimum of 800 to 1,000 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
And you use it for 3 weeks or even 1 week when you are cooking with it. How many of those people down on the ground will afford that? And so the woman, when her young ready, will risk going 5 kilometers every day to get a load. Eventually they get backaches, they get diseases. Eventually they get in smoky houses.
Okay.
They develop chest diseases. It's a sad issue.
Okay, Mr. Ngatia, given that we are running out of time, maybe your final remarks ahead of that particular summit that we'll be witnessing here in the capital.
Yeah, what we would require is the summits, because I can see very many high-level people will come to discuss there, is to look at the issues of community involvement.
Okay.
How do we involve them, and how do we get alternatives in energy sources? Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is Gerald Ngatia, the coordinator, Community Forest Association here in the country, who is advocating on legal strategies on the benefits of sharing of natural resources in the counties. And all the best to you as your bill is in the Senate. Of course, it has been scheduled. I saw the schedule of the Senate itself, and of course spearheaded by none other also by the Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana. We'll be keenly following up that particular. It is just a precursor to what will be happening next week here in the capital. The largest African climate summit will be held here in the capital. The city under the sun will be playing host to that particular summit for the next 4 days or so. Will be from 4th of September to the 8th of September, and spearheaded by none other than President William Samoei Ruto, who will be spearheading that particular program. Also, yours truly, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, will be bringing you that particular event live as it starts, and of course wall-to-wall coverage from our reporters on the ground at the scene, and of course in various parts of the country, just of course feeding into that particular climate summit that will be happening here in the country. We do understand national and international delegates will be streaming into the capital from Friday leading up to that particular summit. That has been our show this lovely morning. I do understand that we do have a lot of your views. Unfortunately, I'll be unable to read some of them given that we are out of time. I can see somebody here from Facebook called Thomas Ongoto saying, a great show. I'm watching from Kisii County rather. He's saying that we thank God that we did not witness violence before, during, and after the polls. That is a few comments. Continue carrying the conversation, not just the calls for review of the Constitution, but this particular issue of the climate summit, of course, both on and offline, given that it touches upon us. As you just heard from Ngatia, it is about the community. We are the affected people if we do not take care of our environment. That marks the end of our program this lovely afternoon. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. Don't go too far. Zainab on the other side of the studio will be coming up with Kurunzi Mashinani. Good afternoon.
Colgate Herbal is formulated from a unique blend of natural herbs and is scientifically proven to strengthen teeth and keep gums healthy. Try Colgate Herbal, scientifically proven for strong teeth and healthy gums.
This August on Magical Scenes.
A big number of wildlife migration than there before. It started on the 14th of July.
So I can tell you that the season is looking pretty good.
A combination of wildlife and cultural tourism.
Sasa ni culture yanaonyesha nguo ya Maasai.
Magical Scenes only on KBC Channel 1.
Kipenzi,